Good morning and welcome to the EAPM webinar on the future of jobs. My name is Ulrik Brix. I'm CEO at Noka and board member at EAPM, and I'm delighted to moderate today's session and learn that almost 1,000 peers have signed up for this webinar. Fantastic. We will explore the essential insights from World Economic Forum's report, Future of Jobs. And to help us, we have invited 4 distinguished speakers who I'm dying to introduce. So first, Rika Lee, Insights and Data Lead at World Economic Forum. Christine Gadeberg, Executive Vice President and Head of People at Nordea. Peter Mølgaard, President at Copenhagen Business School and Chair of the Danish Council of Climate Change. And Christian Lauritsen, HR Director at ISS and HR Lead in Northern Europe. But before we dive into the report, a few words on EAPM and our ambition. EAPM, the European Association of People Management, is a community that connects almost 250,000 HR professionals across 34 countries. Our goal is simple: to enable easy collaboration and efficient knowledge change in the European people community. So today's agenda, as we're diving into that now, are about covering 4 themes from the future of report. So please change the slides. Thank you so much. So the trends and themes we are looking at is job roles and core skills, AI and technology, geopolitics and the green transition, and last, talent availability and lifelong learning. Each theme begins with Riki introducing key insights, followed by a panel discussion and questions from all of you listening in today. So you have a chance to contribute to the insights and the discussion. You can just opt in. But before we begin, I will have a couple of practical details as well. So please use the Q&A function in Teams in the top panel. You can ask any questions you have, and you can also upvote questions from your peers. The slides and the recording will be shared after the session. So now I need your help with a little task. Please scan the QR code now and write in one word, how do you imagine the future of jobs? Please do it now, and we will see how the community think about the future of jobs. Turbulent, yeah, AI. And we will share the full picture with you afterwards. So we hope that we have like hundreds of you guys putting in your perspective on the future of jobs. Technology, AI is of course dominant, but also the focus on what kind of role we as humans are to take in the future. Flexibility, unpredictable. I think it's nice words, and keep it coming as we will share this with you afterwards. Just give it a few more seconds to see the complexity of what we're going to dive into today. Thank you so much for putting in your perspective. And I think I will hand over the word, Riki, to you. So please start sharing your sides or your insights on the future of jobs with us.
Thank you so much, Ulrik. Good morning, everyone. My name is Riki Lee. I am the Insights and Data Lead at the Center for the New Economy and Society, World Economic Forum. I authored the last 2 editions of the Future of Jobs Report, Future of Jobs Report 2025 and Future of Jobs Report 2023. and it is my great honor to be invited to talk about the Europe region highlights in our webinar today. So if we go on to the next slide, I want to start our discussion with the global macro trends that shape the labor market by 2030. Technological change, geoeconomic fragmentation, economic uncertainty, demographic shifts, and green transition, individually and jointly, are shaping and transforming the global labor market in the next 5 years. Moving on to the next slide, how are these trends translated into the job growth and loss in the next half decade? World Economic Calculation, World Economic Forum calculation finds that 14% of today's jobs are expected to be created. This amounts to 170 million jobs being created in the next 5 years on the global scale. This is offset by approximately 8%, 92 million jobs displaced at the global level, which results in a net growth of 7% of total employment. 78 million additional jobs will be created by 2030. I think I prepared a question for everyone who joins this webinar. Which jobs are growing by 2030? So now is the time to join our Slido channel again. I would really love your opinions. Which jobs do you think are growing in the next 5 years? While we are waiting for answers, perhaps I will ask my fellow panelists to also join in, and if anyone has any idea, please shout.
Thank you, Ricky. I would say responsible leaders, and I'm going to type that. I can't type and talk at the same time, but I think I'll get back to that later. But what does it mean to be a responsible leader? And you could ask, does it make sense to talk about irresponsible leaders? And if you look out the window, I just have to say, well, yes. So it has some edge, but I'll get back to that later.
I would say that I think AI, I don't know if it's a job actually, but AI facilitator. To be able to not only develop AI and integrate, but really focus on the integration and how we work with it, so it becomes an enabler, not a job killer. But I would also be back with that.
Yeah, that coincides with a lot of responses that are coming in right now: AI-related jobs, technology-related jobs. Anyone else wants to come in from my panelists while our participants are typing their answers?
Yeah, I think I'm in line with what has been said here. I think it's driven by those two trends, that the emergence of a high degree of tech involvement and AI support into the business and all the processes that will be led there. So I think most of the jobs we don't know yet what they will be, and they will emerge over the coming time. And then I also very, very much agree with Peter that to lead us through this time of uncertainty, the focus on leaders who actually can navigate in this complexity will be a huge task for us.
Yeah.
Brilliant opinions. So now I think I have a clearer picture of what everyone thinks about growing and declining jobs. And thank you for putting back my slides, because that is only one side of the picture. If we look at the absolute numbers of growing and declining jobs, actually most of the jobs are the jobs that form the foundation of our economy. Look at farm workers, truck drivers, construction workers, shop salespersons. These are the jobs are expected to grow the largest by absolute size in the next 5 years. And I want to look at down the list. There are also some jobs that are also oftentimes overlooked, but very important to help us build up our future economy. Care professionals. If we look at number 8 and number 15th of the list, nursing professionals and personal care aides. As well as education roles, one of my fellow panelists, Peter, is also an educator. So these jobs are expected to grow the largest in the next 5 years. And what are the jobs that decline the largest? No surprise, clerical works, secretarial works, and as well as more the jobs that involves more manual repetitive tasks. If we go to the next slide, we look at the fastest growing roles. These roles are the jobs that were more discussed when we talk about future of work. What are the fastest growing roles in the next 5 years? Big data specialists, fintech engineers, AI machine learning specialists. This consists the emerging jobs that we usually discuss when we talk about future of work. Another quite interesting element that first enters the top fastest growing job this year are the green transition related roles. If you look at number 15 to number 12 on the fastest growing jobs list, environmental engineers and renewable energy engineers are among the fastest growing jobs, reflecting how green transition is also transforming the labor market. The fastest declining jobs echo the largest declining jobs that we just talked about. Clerical work, secretarial work, administrative assistants are among the fastest declining roles by 2030. So now we talk about the jobs. What are the expected disruption to come on the skills landscape? Moving on to the next slide, we expect almost 2/5 of existing skill sets among workers will be transformed by 2030. 39% of today's workers' core skills will change in the next 5 years. What does it mean? So now if you go to a 5-year university education, perhaps 2 years of your 5-year education might become irrelevant in terms of the skills that you learn in the school. So we really need new ways to think about which skills that we want to train our workers on and which skills that we as individuals will need to prioritize in the next 5 years. Moving on, the Future of Jobs 2025 actually study what are the core skills at the point of today in 2025. Even though with all the technological disruption changing the labor market, we find that the core skills that employers value today are actually a combination of cognitive skills, combination of self-efficacy skills, analytical thinking, resilience, flexibility, and agility, as well as leadership and social influence are the top essential skills that employers prioritize in today's labor market. This is followed by creative thinking, as well as motivation and self-awareness skills. But how are these skill landscapes changing in the next 5 years? Moving on to the next slide, we see that the top fastest growing skills by 2030 are actually led by a combination of technological skills as well as cognitive and self-efficacy skills. AI and big data, network and cybersecurity skills, as well as technological literacy are leading the change. But then this is followed by creative thinking and resilience, flexibility, and agility skills, which are among the most essential skills that employers value today. Going down the list, if you look at number 10 of the fastest growing skills, environmental stewardship enters the top 10 growing skills for the first time in the last 5 editions of the Future of Jobs report. This highlights how green transition is creating opportunities, but also challenges for workers to prepare for green transition that will transform the labor market in the next 5 years. With that, this is the end of the global findings. I will hand over to Ulrich and my fellow panelists for a short discussion based on the global findings on future of jobs. Ulrich, going back to you.
Thank you so much, Ricky. And again, looking into the report, there's so much great insights. And one of the insights is also about the transformation in the financial industry. So Christina, the report highlights a significant change from traditional financial roles over to more advisory analytical positions. And as one of the major financial institutions in Northern Europe, what are you going to do to rethink workforce planning and talent development?
Yeah, so I first of all, I want to say I very much agree with the findings in the report. I would say more or less the same findings are valid for Nordea internally. So our recent investigations state that more than 30% of our jobs will be disrupted by 2030, with over 50% of the tasks being replaced by AI. So it gives us a large responsibility to enable this shift and also prepare the organization in due time. And the disruption of tasks and jobs, they will really highlight the importance of training and reskilling of employees. And we have discussed, it's very important to us that the disruption must be seen as a job enhancer rather than a job killer. So it's task and job that will change. So that's what we focus on. So we work with our strategic workforce and really try to work with these elements into it, looking ahead.
Perfect. And Peter, like the business schools are a big supporter of all the talents, for example, Christina, and financial institutions and many other organizations. So what do you see in this picture?
Well, I see a business opportunity, I must say, for all business schools and also all universities, because I think what we also see is the need to reskill, and I think we'll get back to that, but therefore for lifelong learning. And so at Copenhagen Business School, we are shortening some of our master's degrees, providing lifelong learning opportunities after the shortened. So we're going from 2 years to 1 year. And then the graduates will be able to come back and actually for free, many of them at least, to get reskilled. I think that's going to be hugely important, and we're going to offer that also for non-business school graduates, so that they can get an upgrade through this.
And Christian, you operate a business that has a very diverse workforce. So any thoughts about the changes in skills and requirements here?
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, I don't envy the task that Peter has in terms of finding out what are the skills we should be training, how should educations be formalized and structured going forward. I think that is, and at the pace that things are changing, I think that must be a massive challenge for everyone working within the space of education, because I think the key thing here is the unpredictability about what's going to happen, sort of the fog surrounding the future of what will emerge at the pace that it does. I think when we look through this, one number that I found both very promising and very scary was the net growth of 78 million jobs. I think it was Ricky said, which will be happening in a context of a demographic change that is immense in terms of a declining population in at least all the markets that I think we're looking at here. So I think that'll be a huge challenge. So not only actually having the skills available, but accepting that it'll be a workforce that will be smaller and smaller, and our ability and our responsibility in actually reskilling and upskilling the people that are with us will be an immense challenge, I think, going forward.
Yeah, and this is also some of the comments in the Q&A, and keep that coming. So the demographics is changing, and I think it was Peter first, and then maybe Christina, we could go to you afterwards. So Peter, what is your...
I just wanted to reflect on the demographics that we see, and which are quite interesting across the world, and what we see in Europe, roughly speaking, and is an aging population, and we'll see fewer young people going into. So we need to think about that. We'll see actually that China is experiencing 40 or 50 years later a decline in 40 or 50 years later than Japan. So there's a pattern to this, that they will in China see a declining population and also aging population. So I think in large part we need to rely on Africa for future workers, and I think that's also a thing we need to think about. That is going to be growing quite rapidly, as is India, but Africa a lot more than India in the next 25 years or so.
Thank you. Christina, you also had a comment.
Yeah, it was more on a slightly different topic, but also what you touch upon. I think it is very important that this is also something I discussed with Peter and other schools, that it's not only about the core skills we need to educate our students with and in. Also my employees, exactly, also to my point before, but it's both the what and the how. It's also really how you then apply it. I think that will come much more in focus going forward than how to apply the technologies, but actually also apply it with critical thinking, be much more aware of the biases it comes with, the risk it can come with, and thereby also the ethic within this. So for me, it has never been as important to work with those two sort of elements in parallel and let them come together.
Because it's also about like how we combine the more cross-disciplinary skills, how we create a learning environment in organizations. So any thoughts about that? So what do you do in fact in ISS, in Nordea and in Copenhagen Business School to make sure that we have a learning agenda that is like thinking forward?
I think one consideration is just that maybe another aspect, but connected to it, is how the work spaces are evolving. So I think there's a massive change in how the place that we meet to actually do work is evolving, and that also I think reflects the skill sets and the competencies needed to going forward here. So as we saw on Ricky's slide, some of the repetitive manual sort of clerical work is disappearing. That means that the workplace with a lot of lines of computers set up in isolation will disappear. And what will emerge, I think, in a much stronger sense is the element of collaborative spaces in the workplace. So we know that flexible working is here to stay, but we also know, at least from the data we have here, that we can see in ISS from all of our biggest customers, is that the solution is not working from home. There is a huge gap in both, mental health, in enjoyment in work, in collaboration and innovation that happens if you're not together in a workplace. But it'll be a significant change. I think Nordea, one of the companies leading on the front with that in rethinking the design of workplaces to fit the skills and the competencies that are actually in high demand now.
Thank you, Christian. Peter, a comment?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And what I think we need to get used to, maybe not in 2030, but then shortly after that in Europe, and I think we're a little behind the Chinese, is the automation and automation both of what we do when we sit behind the desk, but also automation when you think about what is going on in the labor market. I visited accidentally yesterday the robotics cluster that we have in Denmark to see how far advanced it is, and it's everything from small tasks to shipbuilding really that can be automated to some degree, and that requires a change of all of us. So we need to think of those robots and AI agents as colleagues in the future, and I think that's going to require something of us in terms of reorganizing the way we work.
We have a question. Yeah, we also have a question from the audience about length of education. So we talked about the micro learning for many years, but Peter, you also talked about like maybe reducing the length of the candidates and the master's degrees. So will we see a change, and would you like to have a change like at Nordea and ISS in the educational length? So Peter, your perspective, and maybe then push it back to
I'm happy
to
start here. So I think there's a worldwide, a European, and then maybe a specifically Danish answer to this. So let me start with the worldwide. I sit in the board of AACSB, the Association to Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business. And what we see worldwide is a change in increasing flexibility in the way you learn. What we've noted for a number of years now, I think at least 5, but probably more, is that employers to some extent do not require university degrees to the same extent as they did before, or they are more sophisticated in the use of it, in the sense that they often test the talent rather than say just because you have a university degree. So I think that's a mega trend that we need to think about, that employers are actually quite good at thinking about what skills they need and then testing for that when they recruit.
And so pause it there and maybe like throw that perspective to Christina and Christian. Christina, will you go first because you also had some comments?
Yeah, but I just want to comment that I don't think At least that's my view. But I don't think we fully understand the full perspective of AI. I don't think we can imagine how AI-driven tools, they really can change our way of working. At least we have discussed that we take outset at our current ways of working, just like when we had when we got internet. That was when that was launched. And our documents, they were uploaded as PDF files instead of using the functionalities it actually provides us with. So we very much focus on how can we not move from digitizing to digitalizing, so really embedded into it, so we get the benefit mostly from the new AI tools. And somehow there's a shift there, at least in perception, and also how we need to learn and educate ourselves within this, so it doesn't just become from as is, but we really truly think through what needs to change to really enable the full perspective of the new technologies.
A very short comment, Christian, because we are touching upon technology and AI. This is, in fact, the next theme we're going to explore with Ricky. So a very short comment, Christian.
Then maybe just a short one again. I can't imagine the world that Peter lives in right now in terms of trying to predict what the new education should be, that people should join to learn for 5 years because they get so that sort of prediction, I think, must be extremely hard. So I would imagine some kind of stronger symbiosis between educations and companies, meaning that there is another way of having a perspective that you don't sort of take your education and then you go to work, but it's actually a much more symbiotic relationships where you will evolve over time, and it's more than maybe taking some education in your career, but it's actually an integrated part of your job, and it's facilitated and supported by educational facilities that will be this lifelong learning, not only in name but actually in a sort of a planned symbiosis between companies and educations.
Thank you so much, Christian. On that note, Ricky, the word back to you, because you are going to tell a bit about more like AI and technology, how it's going to impact us.
Thank you, Ulrich, and my fellow panelists. And I am going to talk about Europe-specific trends in the next 3 minutes. And of course, I want to start my presentation saying these Europe insights would not be possible without the support and data collection partnership with EAPM. So really want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who participated in the survey and contributed your unique insights. So in Europe, I want to start with, again, the macro trend picture. Broadened digital access, carbon reduction efforts, as well as economic outlook are shaping Europe's labor market by 2030. If we look at digital access, we see that countries like Switzerland is leading in terms of viewing this trend as particularly transformative. Whereas in countries like Estonia, Latvia, and Denmark, broadening digital access is viewed by fewer employers as the most transformative trend in the labor market. And this is followed by increased efforts and investments to reduce carbon emission, as well as rising cost of living, which are both supported by slightly over half of the employers that we interview within the region. Deep diving into the digital access trend, if we go on to the next slide, a lot of the discussion that I heard just now are about technologies. Technologies such as AI, robotics, and energy technology are driving business transformation in the region as well. We see that the most transformative technology trends, no surprise, is AI and information technologies. 87% of the employers that we survey in the region view this trend as transformative for their businesses. In countries like Norway and Sweden, we have an astonishing 100%. And Denmark, Switzerland, and Netherlands, we see over 90% of employers viewing this technology as important for business transformation. And this is followed by robotics and autonomous systems. More than 3 in 5 executives that we survey in the region view it as a transformative technology, followed by energy technology, focus on energy generation, storage, and distribution technology, which are also supported by 44% of the employers that we survey in Europe. Translating these technology trends into specific roles, moving on to the next slide, we can see that the roles for industry transformation in Europe are actually changing in a fast pace as well. The forum calculates that 21% of the jobs in Europe are going to be disrupted, considering more than 201 million workers, million employees in Europe. This almost translates into the population of Spain. So imagine the population of Spain getting impacted by all these trends that we just talked about in the next 5 years. What are the roles for industry transformation that are going to be impacted the most? We find that AI machine learning specialists, data analysts, and scientists, as well as business intelligence analysts, are leading in terms of net growth in the region. These roles, their growth are primarily driven by AI, digital access, as well as robotics. If we look at the declining roles, actually they share in terms of like the trends that are driving the decline of accounting clerks, administrative assistants, and general and operation managers. That role is a bit of in between. And we see that the technological trends are actually shaping the job landscape in Europe by 2030. What about the other side of the coin, the skills? Moving on to the next slide, if we look at the skills outlook, it's actually a similar picture as what I just discussed for the global findings. In terms of core skills, analytical thinking, resilience skills are leading the core skills of 2025 in Europe. And quite interestingly, we see that resilience skills is also enters the top 5 fastest growing skills by 2030. I really like what Christina just said. It's not only about what are the skills, what are the core skills, but also learning how to learn, having the critical analytical thinking skills to apply all the knowledge and capabilities, as well as building a learning environment around it, which explains why curiosity and lifelong learning is also among the top increasing use skills by 2030 in the region. And of course, complementing the skill landscape are the technological skills. AI and big data, cybersecurity skills, as well as technological literacy are among the fastest growing skills in the region by 2030 as well. Moving on to the next slide, I think just now when we were having the panel discussion, we were saying that we are not in a position to fully understand what's the impact of AI in the workplace. But here we hope to offer you at least some examples on how human and technologies, can interact with each other. We survey the employers, how do they distribute the tasks among tasks completed predominantly by humans, tasks completed predominantly by technology, and tasks completed in combination of both human and technology. We find that all the employers that we survey almost expect a drop in tasks delivered by human. So today in Europe, almost half, 48% of the tasks are delivered by human. But then in 5 years, we actually expect this share to drop to 34%. And where do the tasks now done by human go? So we see that there is an increase in terms of tasks done by technology. Today, employers only expect 1/5 of the tasks are right now delivered predominantly by technology, and this share is expected to grow by 12% to 32%, so almost 1/3 of the tasks in 5 years. We also see that different countries actually exhibit different ways to look at how the human-machine frontiers are moving. So we see that, for instance, in countries like Denmark and Latvia, there is a significant drop in terms of tasks done by human. And in countries such as Denmark, most of the tasks actually go to the combination, so the augment technology to augment and enhance the productivity of people tasks. Whereas in countries like Hungary and Belgium, most of the increase actually enter the technology. So basically technology automating a lot of the tasks right now done by human. So now I'm going to stop here. I will hand over to my fellow panelists to share how organizations can proactively address and understand the technological disruption to the workplace. Thank you.
I think I would give this rather big question to Christian. It's a balancing act. I think in the future we see that technology is taking up more and more of the job and the task. So what do you think about in ISS? What would be the balancing of having both human skills like empathy, judgment, and complex problem solving, and support by machines? So what is your thinking about that, Christian?
And that's a big question. Maybe first of all, in line with also what Christina said, the element of focusing on the key skills that you recruit in, which will be something like in the lines of the learning agility, the curiosity, the ability to learn over time. So hiring for potential with the knowledge that you can't really know what skill set you'll need in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So I think that has already been happening. That's an ongoing movement with the complexity and the change in the world that we know that we can't really predict this. So the ability of professionals in the business to be able to change and learn is a key skill going forward. And then I represent a business that is around 350,000 people across the globe, and the main point of that business is human connection. So the key success criteria in any service business is what we call the magic moment, and that's where one of our employees meets one of our customers. And I think to Ricky's point from before, maybe we have a tendency to sort of miss the point that a lot of human connection jobs will still be in rise. We'll have a health sector that will be growing because of an aging population, et cetera, et cetera. So there are elements of the job market that will change significantly because of this, but there's also a huge ask for human connection jobs going forward. And I think in ISS, what we can see here is the fundamental shifts happening within the technology space is primarily used on our side to promote the time to the human connection. And I'll give you an example. One of the challenges we have with a very diverse workforce. So in the Danish business alone, we are more than 100 different nationalities, 136 languages spoken. We hire a lot of refugees coming into the country, many of them without Danish or English language skills. And a main barrier for us has been language. And one key outcome of a technology and an AI revolution is actually that language is almost now obsolete in the terms of how we think about that. So the AI automatic translation in the way that we train, the way that we communicate, the way that we engage with our people and with our customers is almost a non-issue anymore. So I think that's a huge technology advantage that we need to grasp and take hold on, but we'll use this to drive what is the core of our business, which is still the human connection.
Thank you so much, Christian. And I think I give the word to Christina, because you have a business that are much more data-driven and been that for many, many years. So what is your take on the transformation we're seeing here?
So we also talk a lot about this, and we have the same experience as you mentioned, Christian, that we believe that the technology will enable us to do, you can say, even more tasks, but we can do so, and then at the same time we can do tasks more efficient, easier, simpler, etc. And that will sort of leave room in a business also to prioritize the human-centered or the roles where we really prioritize the human interaction. So in a way, free up time for even more of that. So we do not believe that our customers, they will only like to be served or addressed by AI functions or digital functions. It should be you can say a multidiscipline where we both have digitalization and digitalized tools in combination with the human interaction. So we look at both. And one of the things that, if I should build on and give another perspective into it, and we touched upon it in the intro as well, the leadership of this. If we think about how the role of technology and AI really can enhance leadership and interpersonal skills, where AI serves as a supporting partners for leaders. If you can think about it like that, and help to qualify, tailor-made advice, engage with team members. In a new way, where we embrace the technology, but actually use it as something that support, and we call it a supporting partner to leaders, and work with that and work with it in that perspective, it has a huge potential, I think.
So Peter, you hear some requirements basically that we can use technology to argument maybe to argue that leadership is transforming. So what is on your table?
Well, at least three things. So we are embracing new technologies, including AI in education, in our research, and also in our administration. And the last thing, that's the most boring in a sense, because that's what everybody does out there to either be more efficient or augment. So let me talk about the other two. So what we experience these days is that we have the first cohort of high school pupils who get into university, get into business school, and who have been working with AI throughout their high school. And of course, that's a challenge, because often some of them have more experience with this than some of our faculty. So already there you can see that we need to upgrade our faculty, and that's part of our AI strategy to do just that, so that they are also getting AI savvy. In terms of what we teach and and the research we do a lot of research on AI and how it affects all sorts of business processes, from accounting over law to and into fintech, so in the financial sector, and also into the companies like ISS. So that's of course part of what we research and therefore also teach, because it is changing all of society and especially business processes. And just to get back to one of Christian's points from before, that he's not envying me my role to find out what should we educate for the future. We are of course doing that in close collaboration with businesses to find out what should we do, and we're piloting 3 new master's degrees relatively soon. It's not totally announced, but I can reveal that a working title in one of them is AI for business. So of course we need to educate for that, but it's also to do with the financial sector, for example, to make sure that we understand fintech, that we understand how AI affects financial sector problems.
Thank you so much. And I think I can see there's a lot of questions coming in the Q&A, and some of them are basically like HR has a responsibility to drive this in the organization, but this will also impact HR as such. So on a very short note, because time is running, so Christian and Christina, any thoughts about how the impact on the technology will be on your HR organizations internally?
I can start and say that I think we will raise the bar for what we can deliver from HR, because we will get much more. I think we will get better access to data. We will also get the opportunity to understand data much better. But there's tons of people data. So much insights. We can use that. So that, and if we can translate that into HR. Not only tools and processes, but also interventions, then I think we will be great. So that's one. Another very concrete one, and I will do it short, but we are, for the moment, we are creating a career hub where we can see how we can use AI to combine, you can say, or match skill sets, learning opportunities with open positions. So really utilizing the internal job market, being an organization with 33,000 employees and positions. There's a huge job market, but we cannot today in a simple way match it, but the AI can help us. So that would be, so I think the bar would be lifted, but it would be from the data point, that would be the starting point, as I see it.
Data. Thank you. Christian, one very short comment.
A very short one. No, I think apart from the obvious one, which will be for all functions, that it'll drive efficiency for our function, and also so the need for us to rethink how we then can use that time to create value. Then I think the other thing is that HR departments will be left with a huge challenge for the workforce of tomorrow, with expectations of the environment they're stepping into. So these are digital natives, like Peter said, they've grown up with using AI. they have free to use platforms that they're using every day, and they'll have an expectation of stepping into a workplace where this is supported, professional, seamless, intuitive. So I think there's a huge task for us in terms of driving that change of the workplace and the things surrounding the workplace in fitting into the expectations of the generations coming into the workplace right now.
Thank you so much. And pausing the technology discussion and just rushing into another big theme about geopolitics and green transition that also are like filling the room already. I can feel that. So Rikke, back to you.
Thank you. So when we started the webinar, we asked, what do you think about future work? And I saw a lot of keywords around turbulence, unpredictability, changes, uncertainty. And this section is exactly talking to these trends. There are two trends I'm going to highlight in the next few slides, geopolitical trends as well as green transition trends. I'm going to start with the increased geopolitical division and conflicts and how it is impacting the European employers that we survey. More than 1/3, 36% of the employers that we survey in the region view geopolitical division and conflict as a transformative trend in the next 5 years. And please know that we collected this data from May to August last year, which is before the new United States administration, as well as the tariff and trade disruptions. And by now, I could only imagine the number will be significantly higher than when we surveyed the employers. We see that in countries like the UK, Germany, Portugal, and the Netherlands, over half of the employers that we survey view it as a transformative trend. And only 4 European economies manifest a lower than global average concern over this particular trend. If we go into the next slide, the green transition trends is also among the top macro trends for the European companies that we survey. Moving on to the next slide, green transition trends are considered transformative by European companies. Two trends that we asked about the European that we asked the European employers: carbon reduction efforts, as well as increased investments and efforts to adapt to climate change. Most European economies sit above global average on both of these two green transition trends. We see that when it comes to carbon reduction efforts, countries like Italy and Norway are leading the charge. Only 6 economies exhibit a lower than global average perception when it comes to carbon reduction efforts and investments. On the other hand, when it comes to climate change adaptation trends, countries like Norway, Ireland, and Switzerland are leading in terms of this trend impacting the labor market, whereas countries like Estonia and Latvia are slightly lagging behind the regional average. How are these trends shaping the employer's workforce strategies? Just now, my fellow panelists discussed a bit how our HR reacting or proactively planning for these trends and uncertainties. We find that the top go-to workforce strategy in the next 5 years is upskilling. We find that 85% of the European employers that we survey plan to invest in training, upskilling, and reskilling their workforce. In countries like Portugal and Romania, the number is even higher than 90% of the employers that we survey. Then we also see how European employers are actively reacting to the technological changes. We see that there is an acceleration of process and task automation. There's also, if you look at the number 4 options, the augmentation, using technology to complement the workforce. I think this touches on what Christian and Christina have been discussing. The human interactions cannot be completely replaced by technologies and robots. And that's why a lot of the employers that we survey plan to augment their workforce, use technology to enhance the productivity rather than replace human workers at once.
Thank you so much.
Also joining the top 5 workforce strategies are the hiring as well as transitioning existing staff from declining to growing roles. And very quickly on the last slide, I want to pick up, I think, what Christian and Peter both mentioned, the demographic change. If we go into the next slide, the talent availability outlook in Europe. we see that the disruptions that we just talked about, including green transition trends, geoeconomic shifts, as well as technological trends, coupled with demographic shifts, are impacting employers' talent availability outlook. Can we go on to the next slide?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So we find that in Europe, when it comes to hiring availability, unfortunately, only 4 countries in Europe are more optimistic than global peers. These 4 countries are quite interesting. We can divide them into 2 groups. On the one group, you have countries like Greece and Serbia. On the other groups, you have France and Spain. The former group might be more kind of less impacted by the declining working age population, but the latter group is more impacted by the growing working age population because of the immigration flow. And then if we look at the talent retention of existing workforce, the last row, which is also Europe exhibits a lower than global average optimism when it comes to talent retention outlook. All countries except Serbia are below the global average. And now, when it comes to talent development, the second row, we see that overall, European employers are slightly more optimistic when it comes to existing workforce talent development outlook. But then this also segues into how we look at the reskilling and upskilling outlook if we switch to the next slide. We find that 11% of the workforce are unlikely to be upskilled if we continue our training trajectory today. We asked the employers, how many of your workforce do you think that will need training by 2030? In Europe, 62%, which amounts to 124 million workers in the region, will need training by 2030. And among them, 32% will be upskilled in their current role, so staying in the current role, but get training. 19% will be upskilled.
So really, I want to pause you basically, because we need to get something, reaction from the panel. There's so many great insights, and I think that we all know we can use hours for digging into these. So I want to put the panel on, and especially Peter to begin with, because you have like different roles in this as well, as a business school, but also as a chair of the climate council. So how do you see this impacting us as a society and you as a business school?
That is a huge question, and I hope we have a few hours for that, but maybe not. So let me try to be brief. Very interesting what Ricky just said. I think it resonates a lot with what we put under the heading responsible business or responsible leadership at Copenhagen Business School. And maybe just first, I'm a professor after all, define what I mean by leadership or leader. So I think everybody in your organizations who have agency, who have a right to determine something, could be seen as leaders in this, right? So it's not just formal leadership and CEOs and stuff like that. It's a lot more. If we think about that, I think we need to think about responsible leadership. And the world that Ricky just described to me is characterized by a polycrisis. So we have more than one crisis that we need to deal with as businesses. So starting with geopolitics, we see security issues all over the place in Europe. And to focus on Europe, we have 2 wars going on nearby. We have the one in Ukraine, which is in Europe, and we have the Middle Eastern one, which may also affect us. So there's a security concern that is new and means a lot to, for example, supply chains and how we organize those. The other part of the polycrisis is sustainability, climate, nature, biodiversity, and that's with my other cap on that I often discuss that. But it's also something that we need to deal with. And then the third crisis, which is one we just discussed, is the technological crisis in Europe, because we are behind compared with China, compared with the US. So to us, that describes a circle of wicked risks that we need to maneuver in, and that's what we discussed initially, but also to find business solutions in. And basically we need to repair for example, the technology gap, and these things are intertwined. So you can, for example, think of a windmill farm in the North Sea as providing both a solution to the climate crisis, but also to the energy abundance crisis, and therefore also to lifting productivity in Europe. And you can think that that might also pose a security issue. So these things are intertwined. And what can we do about it? We need to educate young people now that understand that these things are intertwined and that can find a way through and find solutions in the poly crisis. And and so we're doing a lot of research on this. We also get it into the to the program. So we have a CBS executive education program on the future of responsible leadership. And that's the way we need to go. To get back to one of the things that we discussed also just before, I think one of the things we need to be human-centered also in the way we deal with this. So we can't leave everything to technology. That wouldn't be good. So in our skills,
I will pause you a bit, Peter, because I really want to hear about Christian. You are having an organization that are covering like 20 plus markets in Europe and globally even more. So how to cope with both the focus on the geopolitics and the green transition? What is your take on that from an Asia perspective?
I think it's spot on what Peter said. I think for Europe, I mean, what would keep me awake at night, if I'm honest, in the business context, is the lack of workforce, and the demographic outlook we have is terrible in a large-scale business like ours, and that's worsened by the geopolitical climate right now, which means that there is for two reasons actually, for a very pragmatic reason, that we will need to put a lot of resources into national defense, which means that around 20,000 people will be needed in the Danish defense alone, which means that they are then out of the workforce. So that's one very pragmatic reason. Another larger, sort of more broader reason is that the climate now in countries will be to be, shall we say, more hesitant towards the idea of free flow of people from countries into our countries. And that's a huge risk because, like we just saw in the demographics, all of Western Europe will be experiencing a huge workforce shortage. And the places where there is actually people that can be employed and that should be employed is outside of Europe. So, and these are jobs, again, if we talk about it back to other point, it's not really jobs that we used to outsource, which is sort of admin work that is automated now. So this is human connection jobs. This is people needed in our healthcare facilities. It's people needed in the service industry. So I think that's the fear that I have right now, that the political climate will worsen the demographic challenge we have in front of us. So I think for companies, it's also about taking a stand on that and trying to influence policy making in terms that we can't sort of close down our borders completely if we are going to upkeep the system and the welfare that we believe we should have.
Thank you. And we're going to touch more upon the talent availability in the last section. But Christina, you as an organization, you work a lot with sustainability and have a lot of actions. So what do you see is the most important thing to focus on right now?
Yeah. So first of all, we talk a lot about geopolitical tension. I don't think that is a new news. We have for many, or probably always have had geopolitical tension. I think the difference is that we have a responsibility and ability also to do something about it, and that's what I see also both corporates but also employees. They would like to that we are a company who take responsibility for this, and not saying that no one else have been responsible for this or taking responsibility before, but I think this is increasing. So I would really welcome, and this is to Peter also, that we can have a even stronger collaboration between universities and the corporates, because by that we can create the frameworks and we can create the learning platforms to really be much better prepared for this, and now also feeling much more resilient, so we can act and not be surprised or uncertain. And I would welcome that we think much more about creating, you can say, foundation for education, but then we can we can come back to universities and business schools and learn more, and then we can go back in business. So we are much more flexible in how we look upon this going forward. And for me, the key word in this is become much more resilient in general.
And one of the questions is also touching upon the same discussions about the lack of talent. Basically, we know that the defense sector is going to grow a lot worldwide, and especially also in Europe. And is this part of the sustainable and geopolitical effect that we need to cope with as organization and HR, and what our role basically? So how do you see that? And I think Peter will be the first one to opt in on that. Hopefully.
No, that's a very good question. I think one of the Copenhagen Business School is part of Interforce, which is the collaboration between the defense in Denmark and the civic society, really. And I think that kind of collaboration, where you also you deal with veterans, you deal with people who are reservists, and I think we need to mobilize society a lot more. I think that kind of collaboration is going to be part of the solution for all companies, and so that's not more on what we do, but I think what also others need to do more in the future. And I think if you can provide let me just say that is one thing. And back to Christian's point on how can we, now that we are then putting a lot of young people into military service more than before. I think what we also need to do is to make sure that the skills that they get while they are serving would be useful afterwards as reservists in private companies, because not all of them are going to stay there, of course. And so I think we need to think about the education that they get while in the military. That's going to be important. Ideally, something that will give you value for afterwards in companies.
And time is running. It's a very short comment, like 30 seconds. Christian, I know you also work a lot with the veteran and the defense is a part of your thinking as well. So.
Yeah, we're also part of the Interforce collaboration, proudly there, and I think the point I would make there is that I think all of the companies that I know of are rethinking how they're better prepared, how they're more resilient, like Christina would say, how we take an active role in understanding what our role will be in civic defense as it comes to it. And I think in Denmark, we're far behind that thinking. My colleagues in Finland would say that this is something that's been on the agenda forever. So exactly. I just had my colleague in Finland who were away for 14 days, full days, retraining of corporate C-suites in the Finnish companies in terms of how to play in to society and civic defense if something should arise. And I think we are sort of waking up to a new reality in many of the countries, understanding the role of companies in supporting that resilience in a potential conflict. So I think that will also have a huge impact to how we think about that.
It's a very long 30 seconds, but good comment. Thank you, Christian. So, Christina, one brief comment, and then we'll give the word back to Ricky because I cut you short, and maybe you can just do the transformation over to the last part of the keynote. So, Christina, one small comment for you.
No, but I think actually the point about that we should learn much more about how to integrate the learnings from defense and the activities there, how to integrate that in our curriculum. That's spot on. That's for the future, and I will also make it much more attractive for our younger people to join and to invest in that matter.
Thank you so much, Ricky. The word back to you, and you probably have some sort of like framing also on this. I know I cut you short.
Yes, no worries. I would rather start my final part with a more hopeful notes. We've been talking about building resilience workforce. I want to talk about the talent measures to increase talent availability. So if we switch to the next slide, the people factors are expected to pose a significant barrier in Europe in the next 5 years. If we move on to the next slide, which is the message I just shared, The skill gaps in the labor markets, the organization culture, resistance to change, inability to attract talent to the industry are highlighted by the employers that we survey in the region that will hinder their organization transformation. And moving on to the next slide, we asked the employers, how do you plan to increase talent availability to attract more talents by running a lot of the business practices? And the top one is actually coinciding with the workforce strategy that we just discussed, providing effective reskilling and upskilling, giving workers development opportunities so that they can grow within the organization, coinciding with the third highest ranking business practice to improve talent progression and promotion processes. And the second highest ranking is almost supported by 7 in 10 executives that we survey in the region, supporting employee health and well-being, as well as following by offering higher wages, offering remote and hybrid work opportunities within countries. Moving on to the next slide, I want to echo what Christina, Peter have discussed. Businesses cannot do this on their own. It should come in collaboration with governments, with academia, with different stakeholders in the society to address talent availability issue. We ask the employers, where do you need the most support in terms of public policy? The result, the top two most welcomed, most desired public policy to increase talent availability are both related to training, to reskilling and upskilling. People expect governments to fund reskilling and upskilling, as well as being an active player and provisioning some of reskilling and upskilling activities. And one of the key messages I didn't manage to cover in the last section is that 11% of the workforce are unlikely to be upskilled in Europe if we continue the current training pathways. This amounts to more than 20 million people in Europe unable to access the training opportunities in order to transition in the next 5 years. And this is bigger than the population of the Netherlands. Just think about how companies should and can work with different parties, different stakeholders within their country to unlock these opportunities for their workforce will be essential to shape the labor market in the next 5 years. If you are not able to access funding and provision, if as governments, funding and provisioning of reskilling and upskilling might not be a top priority, businesses also welcome more flexibility in terms of regulation frameworks, such as flexibility on hiring and firing practices supported by almost half of the employers that we survey in Europe, and also changes to labor laws related to remote work and flexible work, supported by almost 4 in every 10 executives that we survey in the region. With that, I will open the floor for our brilliant panelist discussion to discuss more how we can work together to address the talent availability issue. And you're always welcome to scan the Future of Jobs report and participate in the next edition of Future of Jobs survey.
Thank you so much, Ricky. And we will get back also to the resources you provide for all our participants here in the community. So there's a lot of things going on here, and we see a lot of upskilling is needed. Talent shortage is huge. So what kind of like initiatives do you take, Christina, in Nordea in order to make sure that you both have like internal mobility, learning opportunities, and have access to talent?
So for us, it's very much about embracing the role of being a sustainable employer. And this is with, if we share the goal of creating long-lasting positive impact, this is much more about much more than just prioritizing, financial achievements, etc. It is really the well-being of employees, also supporting the societal needs that we just talked about, and protect the environment goes without saying. But it's really you can say the culture and the mindset in the organization we work with. So I, as an employer, I of course, responsible for allowing, but also promoting this lifelong learning and development. But it's also for the employees to take responsibility for them to ensure that they are future employee relevant, and that they have the skills in place and the right, being in the right positions now, but also going forward. So it's a partnership much more, I would say. We sometimes we go also out externally and hire for the skills we cannot hire or develop within. But I actually, as an employer, take huge pride in building also talent within, because we have a lot of talent, and we have a lot of employees, and if we can work more proactively with this, not only will we have easier access to talent and skills, but also our employees will see us as a sustainable employer. So we work very carefully with this in our strategic workforce planning. We work with, as I mentioned before, this career hub, but also really prioritizing our learning and development dialogue. So all our employees, they have development plans, and then they go beyond this year. They go further into the future. So yeah, I could speak with this for long, but
we will invite you back to do that soon. One of the comments from the Q&A is, of course, you have some of the big organizations represented today, and there's a lot of people working in SMEs, small organizations that don't have that kind of like structured approach to upskilling, and maybe we get a bit worried about who's going to take responsibility on upskilling these kind of individuals. So Peter, you have like you have a broad variety of companies having candidates from your business school. So what is your thinking about taking that kind of responsibility?
No, we are very happy to take on that part of the job, and of course, if you are big enough to have a corporate academy, that we would love to engage with the corporate academy, and I think the collaboration that I think both Christian and Christina have been suggesting between academia and companies, we would very much like to engage in that. So we have a special responsibility to small and medium-sized enterprises, of course, because they don't have necessarily the capacity to do a corporate academy, and of course then that's why we have different kinds of courses, short and long courses, summer schools where you can go and get upskilled, and I think that is going to be something that we are going to increase a lot in the coming years. I think the old model where you had, you went to kindergarten and then 20 years later you had a degree, and then you graduate, and then you would for the next 40 years work with that model is challenged, to say the least. So we see the current transformations as a possibility also to reimagine lifelong learning, both for big companies and in collaboration with big companies, but also for small and medium-sized enterprises. And that's why we have open enrollment courses at varying lengths and often during the summer. So you can do that partly there, but also weekends and stuff that would allow you to keep your company going while going back to school. And then in Denmark, and I think that's a nice example of a triple helix collaboration where it's the private sector, the public sector, and academia that work together. We are reimagining lifelong learning as a society also. So I think this political reform that we are experiencing right now will allow for more of that. And then we need to find new ways, so flexible formats supported with artificial intelligence, so you can get personalized learning whenever you want to do that, but also with online formats, hybrid formats, and we still believe that there's fortunately a lot of young people, but also some more mature people who would like to get back to school and in a physical way also. And that's, I think, is one of the reasons that we will still exist in 2050.
Thank you so much. And Christian, representing a very broad workforce with some have very high academic degrees, but most have different skills that need to be applied. How do you see this? What can we do as a society and HR professionals, but you as well as a business, do to work with this critical change?
So I think in the service business we have a credo that says higher attitude, train skills, and that's been sort of implemented to sort of accept the fact that in the service business the core quality is actually your service mindset, your service attitude, and a lot of the skills training can be done if you have a professional setup for that. But that also maybe goes into saying these are sometimes skilled or unskilled jobs. But I think we can maybe apply the same sort of credo to also academia as we go into it. So not to undermine the skills that are needed there, but just to reflect on the fact that we don't know precisely what skills are needed. So I think, again, hiring attitude, meaning getting what Christina pointed to earlier, which is the core learning agility and the ability to actually transform and change and learn. That is what we should be looking for. And then we need to take on the responsibility with good institutions and others in saying that the lifelong learning is a responsibility. And I think we've said that, we've had that on the flyers and in the corporate, announcements over. But I think we need to take it much more seriously. That this is, like I said before, a symbiosis of ongoing learning that will be a ping pong between school, between jobs, etc., etc. And because we need to explore it as we go along. I don't think there's anyone in the world right now that can be said precisely what are the skills needed in 5 years or 10 years.
Thank you so much. I think I would really love you to, because we have run into a lot of topics here. So we want to try to sum up on this, and I also want to bring Ricky back on screen as well, because there are so many things we could go into. So if you should give the human resource management and people community a good advice or an action that they should apply right now, what would that be? I don't know, Christina, if you want to go first. So what would your best advice be for us as a community to drive this change?
Yeah, but I do think it perhaps goes without saying that AI has to play a central role in your strategic workforce planning in ours, how we work with that. So it is integrated into that, but not only as an isolated element, but simply something that can enable also other competences, how we work with data, etc. And then I think my also previous point about this critical thinking, I think that will become crucial, and work with that. And then I really appreciate, but also would recommend to team up with business schools, academia, society, but also other companies. And you talked about the SMEs versus the larger corporate. Why not teaming up also across there? Because we are not in times where we should hide and keep information and knowledge to ourselves. We should really be in a share as much as we can, like we do today. I find that's very inspirational, and that's the way we will overcome this.
Thank you so much, Christina. Christian, would you want to sum up? You already started on it, but maybe sum up on what are the good advices you can share with us?
I heard a sentence, and maybe smart people on the call can say who the quote is from. But there was a sentence saying that you have a tendency to overestimate the short-term impact of a technological revolution and underestimate the long-term. And I think that's something to think about in what we're looking at here. So I think we are extremely fired up now about the AI advances. I think we might be a little disappointed about the huge sort of impact over the next 6 months or something like that. And we think that when Copilot comes in and we introduce in the suite, things will revolutionize. I don't think that will actually happen. But I think that the long-term impact of what we're looking at here is completely overwhelming. So I would say maybe the good advice for us is to, sort of have a little patience in understanding what's going on, but also be acutely aware that this will be fundamentally changing the way that we think about the way that we drive our business. And then the other way I would think about for HR professionals is taking a very, very strong ownership on the workplace, the things that we build around structures about the people coming into us, because we'll be in a desperate fight for talent going forward in all the companies we're talking about here. And one factor will be trying to find out and facilitate the expectations that new generations coming into our workforce will have to us. And that goes both to technology, it also goes to sustainability, to mental health, etc. That are different expectations that a smaller generation coming into the workforce can put on us.
Thank you so much, Chris. Peter, do you want to are we overestimating stuff or yeah?
No, I think I don't know who said what, Christian. I'm not as wise as that, but I do remember that in the risk report from the World Economic Forum from January this year, they measure what are the concerns in the next 2 years, but also in a 10-year perspective. And in the first 2 years, it's a lot about geopolitics, security, and misinformation, disinformation, all that kind of stuff. In the long run, it's also about sustainability and climate and all that. So I think that mix of things is there, and I think we need, as a society, as businesses, to deal with the short term as well as the long run at the same time, and that's one of the challenges. And I can't help also but reflecting on Christina's critical thinking. We're trying to instill that in all our students through what we call the Nordic 9. And these are 9 capabilities that we think students or graduates should have across the board, so that they have sufficient understanding of the larger context in which they work. And let me just read 3 of them up there, number 5, 6, and 7, because they speak to what we've been talking about. Number 5 is that, and mind you, this is what our graduates should be able to do when they exit and get into the labor market. You understand ethical dilemmas and have the leadership values to overcome them. That's 1. Number 6, you're critical when thinking and constructive when collaborating. And number 7 is you produce prosperity and protect the prosperity of next generations. So I think in that also the short run, the long run, and all of that. And can I just say, as an advice to the business community out there, that it is imperative, I think, for the future that you give your employees time, opportunity, and incentives to pursue lifelong learning. And I think that will be part of also making jobs attractive out there. And I think that I'll close with that.
Thank you, Peter. So maybe I had improved the employee value proposition, also putting learning into that equation. So Ricky, does this resonate with what you're hearing across the world and the impact you get, the info you get back from all when you're presenting this report?
Yes, I have one key takeaway and one action that I want to share with the group. Key takeaway, we're living in a time where disruptions, uncertainties have become so overwhelmed that we just need better insights. We need collaboration from different parts of the society to work together. It doesn't make sense for one business to lead the charge of how we run training. It doesn't make sense for the government being the one who worry about how their workers transition from the declining jobs to the emerging ones. It is a time that we need to work together, bring all the stakeholders on the table, understand the opinions, and have like a shared future of what the future of work, what the future of workplace should look like. And then in terms of action, I want to take the time to make a short advertisement for the next edition of the Future of Jobs. So it is in this time of uncertainty and disruption that we need clarity in terms of data and insights on how the labor market will evolve in the next 5 years. So I want to invite every single one of you who joined today's webinar to take part in the next Future of Jobs survey so that we are able to look ahead. What are the skills, the jobs in demand, and how can we as HR professionals, business leaders, get prepared for it? And with this, we're able to kickstart a global conversation and bring the right people to the table so that we have the right momentum and resources to tackle this very important challenge for the next decade or even longer.
Thank you so much. And this was basically the time we had to go in and explore the trends from the report. So thank you so much for our speakers, Christina, Christian, Peter, and Ricky, of course, for your excellent perspectives. And you provided us, I think, with that excellent understanding on how we are impacted, but also on how organizations as World Economic Forum, the ISS, and Copenhagen Business Schools basically are having views on the future. So thank you for sharing that. And I think as we conclude today's session, I think it's very important for us to remember that the discussions today made, I think, one thing very, very clear, that our future depends on our ability to both adapt and to learn. So whether we face new job roles or new skills or trying to cope with geopolitical shift and the transition, or it's about AI technology, I think it's clear that curiosity and learning is now our most critical tools for success. So as I see it, as HR professional leaders, we need to guide our organization to this complexity, ensuring that technology both elevates human potential and are not replacing it. We need to make it better and think about the future work not to be led by certainty. We don't know what's going to happen, but we need to be brave to ask better questions about the future. So thank you so much, all of you, my peers joining in today. You invest your time, energy, and passion and career in developing an organization where people can thrive. So I hope all of you got something valuable from this session, and we'll go on exploring both the current report and all the resources we have there. So there's white papers and stuff like that. We even did a white paper on how it would impact HR. You can explore that. And slides and video will also be available to you soon after this meeting. But before we wrap up, our goal in EAPM is, of course, to give you even better insights in the future. So I hope you will join in and give us some feedback. It takes only 2 minutes, but we would love to hear about how you experienced today and how we can improve for the future. So scan the QR code, and I will leave it on as we say thank you for today, and we hope to get your response so we can do even greater stuff in the future. So thank you so much for contributing, having good questions in the Q&A, and I hope to see you all soon in EAPM. Have a great day. Thank you so much.